towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Amen. All right, friends. So I thought I was going to address a couple other things first, but as I'm saying the invocation again to start this part of our conversation today, I'm really lingering on the word master, which has shown up. So I'm going to say a couple things about that. I hope not to say very much, though, because we spent a lot of time talking about it last time. Here's the thing. Piro Murshid Inayat Khan, who brought the Sufi message to humanity 100 years ago, started really his teaching 115 years ago, but was still alive and really in the height of his teaching 100 years ago. And he gave us as humanity and us as a community of spiritual seekers and us as murids, as students on the path of Sufism, the path of wisdom, which is usually the biggest focus that he gave for what Sufism is. It is the path of wisdom. He gave us an abundance of treasures, of teachings and prayers and practices and tools, instruments, guidance for all of us to develop into the greatest, most beautiful, most conscientious expressions of humanness that we possibly can. Going back to one of the themes that someone else said, that really is the Sufi ideal. One of the practices, tools, gifts that he offered us was this very simple prayer of the invocation, which encapsulates everything. I have to check myself. Does it leave anything out? I don't know. If it does, I'm not finding it. It encapsulates everything towards the one. It comes from where we experience ourselves and points us in the direction of our most cherished ideal, which is the perfection, the highest, the most magnificent expression of love, harmony, and beauty that are all interrelated, interdependent, intercreative, interinstructive. There I go with my lists again, Salim, you're welcome. That are part of the picture of what it is that our hearts are longing for and our souls are aspiring toward, and our human awareness is trying to experience. The only being. That really covers everything. The only being, which is God, but he doesn't use the word God in here. Have you noticed that? How amazing is that? That he puts this central, core, essential instruction and practice together for us, and it does not use a name for God. it uses these qualities and these descriptions that trace the outline and the essence of this all-pervading, here's another theme, beloved, without needing to use a title or a name. These are descriptive characteristics and ways for us to be invited into the intention and the goal of every soul. United with all the illuminated souls, this only being includes, is constituted of, is surrounding, embracing, and expressed as all the illuminated souls, which is all of the teachers, all of the masters, all of the saints, all of the prophets, all of the great beings that have come to instruct and encourage and comfort and guide humanity toward a better evolution. All the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master. The illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master. It is not the message, and it is not the mother, and it is not the mystery. It is the Master. And what does the Master mean in this context? It means the all-pervading God reality. It means the only being. And it has a quality of responsibility, of power, of magnificence, of adoration. It is intentionally a quality of a being, not an idea, not a concept, not an atmosphere, not a feeling. It's a being. And in so many of Murshid's teachings, he described so eloquently, and I'm going to do a lousy job of it because I am definitely not Murshid, but he described the essential quality of making God a reality as a being. It is fine to say God is love. It is fine to say God is life itself. It is fine to say that God is a mystery. It is fine to say that God is a mother. It is fine to say that God is a father. It is fine to say that God is the source. It is fine to say that God is any qualities, any descriptions that you wish. And if we are to make God a reality, it is essential that we relate to God as a being, not as a concept. If it's a concept, we can get a sense of it, but we can't have a relationship with it. We can't have a conversation with it. We can't bump up against it and grapple with it and wrestle with it like the Israel. We can't really discover the truth of our own divine beings. And we can't identify with God as the inherent perfection of our own soul if we aren't able to relate to that divine being as a being. Saying master makes it a being and gives some very important descriptive qualities, some essential characteristics. The master knows what it is doing. The master is all capable. The master has and expresses wisdom and care and love. The master sees things clearly, beautifully, understands and holds unwavering intention, the master is capable of the foundation of stability, of purpose, of making, molding, and building all of creation according to the most beautiful ideals. Also, the master is the aspiration for any of us human beings who actually wish to be in charge of our own experience in life and to tend with as much conscientiousness as possible to the unfolding of our own souls and the fulfillment of our own purpose. Can we do that by accident without mastery? Yeah, but as Murshid would say, then it would be a chance. That was in the reading from the Gitas from last night. Then it would be a chance and not a consistent, reliable intention with mastery. There is nothing about the word master that is tyrannical or even masculine or even about relation or comparison or competition or relation meaning relative to anything else. Mastery is actual sovereignty. If any of us have any capacity of mastery, it means that we have a capacity of efficacy, of knowledge and competency according to intention, not by accident, not by chance. There's an awakeness about it that is essential. Okay, I think that touched on all of the themes that we said. Let's see. Okay, one more thing before I pause the recording. I do still have some of your notes and we'll come back to them, but one more thing before I stop the recording for this moment. Along with mastery, Sufism is the path of love. And Murshid used that more as the defining characteristic of Sufism when he said it is not a religion. But this is also what Murshid said. Sufism is not a religion, but we, especially in our Western mentality, we understand what is meant by the word religion. Like we have a context for that word that seems important. So because we are attached to the word religion, because we think about religion as the spiritual path and the instruction for the spirit, for the soul, and for the relationship with God, with the unseen reality, because we're comfortable with the idea of religion, Westerners want to call Sufism a religion because it's a word, it's a vocabulary we're familiar with. So he said, if you have to call it a religion, call it the religion of the heart. Not because it is a religion, but because that's the language that we might be inclined to use for it. If you have to call it a religion, call it the religion of the heart. That, as an acceptable phrase, has at the center of it love. So, Sufism as the path of love means that there are these different qualities of love. There is the love itself, there's the giver of love, which is the lover, there is the recipient of love, which is the beloved, and there is the love itself. And we are invited to embody, express, understand, relate to, embrace, and create. There's another list. All of these aspects of love, while we are aspiring toward the greatest awakeness and the greatest, highest competencies, mastery, all together, all at the same time. And they work as complementary energies, that love and relationship with the beloved is really celebrated, demonstrated as being a path of surrender, of surrendering the self. Love is inherently selfless, focused on the beloved, and being willing to release, soften, be humble, be in service to, be free from the self-centered motives of the everyday life values. So focusing on the beloved is the most beautiful way that we are willing to release the ego grasping. One of Murshid's aphorisms that I come back to a lot because it's so excellent is that all beings surrender to power unwillingly and to beauty willingly. All beings surrender to power unwillingly and to beauty willingly. I might need to say the invocation again to get myself back on track. Hold on a second. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. What is the Sufi ideal? There's the question, isn't it? Of course, Murshid would say that the ideal is according to each person, that every being has their own ideal, and that the ideal of each person changes over time, and it's supposed to change. Shatter your ideal upon the rock of truth, as Murshid said. That is, the things that are the most important to us at one stage, in one moment in our lives, falls away eventually and changes into something else. And that is the nature of ideals. He said that ideals are like steps on stairs, that they're not supposed to be attained and then stood upon. You're supposed to move up or down like along the staircase and not cling to one step. And the Sufi ideal. He did talk about that a lot, didn't he? And all woven into the message. Mostly Murshid would come back to some form of a description of the message as being that all human beings are part of the body of God, that it is all one reality that we are all participating in and expressions of, and that if there is illness or pain in any part of the body, then the body is not free from illness and pain, that we are connected and dependent, interdependent, and that the ideal is to realize that truth and to experience it and live it as fully as we can, to awaken into that truth, capital T, truth. The Sufi ideal is the pursuit of wisdom and that is shaped and described by the 10 Sufi thoughts. Shaped and described by the 10 Sufi thoughts. Are you all familiar with the 10 Sufi thoughts? Wow, what have I been doing with these things? Hold on. Is that where I have them? Oh, maybe here. Here you go. There are 10 principal Sufi thoughts that comprise all the important subjects with which the inner life of man is concerned. Number 1, there is one God, the eternal, the only being. None else exists save God. We could spend like the next several days just discussing these, but we're just going to read through them so you have this framework. Number 2, there is one master, the guiding spirit of all souls, who constantly leads all followers towards the light. Number 3, there is one holy book, the sacred manuscript of nature, which truly enlightens all readers. Number 4, there is one religion, the unswerving progress in the right direction towards the ideal which fulfills the life's purpose of every soul. Number 5, there is one law, the law of reciprocity, which can be observed by a selfless conscience, together with a sense of awakened justice. Number 6, there is one human brotherhood, the brotherhood and sisterhood which unites the children of earth indiscriminately in the fatherhood of God. Number 7, there is one moral principle, the love which springs forth from self-denial and blooms in deeds of beneficence. Number 8, there is one object of praise, the beauty which uplifts the heart of its worshipper through all aspects, from the seen to the unseen. Number 9, there is one truth, the true knowledge of our being within and without, which is the essence of all wisdom. And number 10, there is one path, the annihilation of the false ego in the real, which raises the mortal to immortality and in which resides all perfection. I can send it to any of you who wish for it. I mean, and you can find it everywhere with slight variations of language, of course. And so 10 Sufi thoughts. I think that covers it. I think it does. Okay. Where's my other thing? Prophet Muhammad. I I don't know how many times I try to describe and answer the relationship between Piro Murshid Inayat Khan and the Sufi message that he brought, and the Prophet Muhammad and the message that he brought, which, of course, both of them would say is the same message, because there is nothing new under the sun, according to Solomon, and because there's like, what is the point of these great teachers that come to guide, instruct, encourage humanity? It's always the same. It's always the same message, and none of them claim any responsibility for creating it, for shaping it, for giving it any particular flavor. That it is, they've been charged with giving the same message again and again and again and again. Because we, in our humanness, forget, because we get confused, because we get distracted along the way, and we need to be reminded again and again and again. All right, so Piro Murshid Inayat Khan, he was raised in a Muslim household. His root tradition, the religion that he was brought up in, was Islam. And so that is the religious home context. And he, from an early age, he talks about being a child and questioning the practice and the prayers, and wondering what it's for, and wanting to understand the real meaning and purpose of prayer, of any religious practice. And then being given the encouragement and the support and the kindness to be able to discover and explore and experience for himself the purpose of a spiritual life, of religious practice. And there are stories from him early in his life of having a natural respect and understanding and tolerance and friendship, and wanting to protect and celebrate other people's faith traditions and practices and religious culture. And um, and he, Piro Murshid Inayat Khan, sought out and found a teacher and was trained in these 4 schools of Sufism that have such a wide array of practices, of forms and approaches to spiritual development, that that are not all rooted in Islam. Some are, and some are not. And his practices and culture included music as devotion, and study and mastery, like and um, once he started teaching and describing and lecturing about the spiritual life and everyday life and Sufism and the Sufi message, he was very explicit in saying that he was not teaching or describing or offering a message that was tied to any particular faith tradition or any particular prophets, but that he was advocating for an absolute respect and love and acknowledgement of all the faith traditions and all the prophets. And that includes Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him. And Murshid shaped the language and the form of teachings and instruction according to the audience, according to the people that he was with, because he knew that people needed to hear things in their own language. And I don't just mean um, the the common vernacular. I don't just mean like in English. I mean with the vocabulary, the spiritual words and languaging that is comfortable and meaningful for the people that are present. He did, in his teachings, tell stories about and he did speak about the teachings and the message and the practices and the religious context of the Prophet Muhammad, but not to the exclusion of anything else, and also not with a particular emphasis. Um, and that was very intentional. That um, I think if you were to look through all of the Sufi message volumes that Murshid left us, which are 14 books of the Sufi message volumes, if you were to do a search for the stories and references from the Judeo-Christian Bible or from the Quran, you would find a whole lot more that was uh, in Christian biblical terms. I could say, I started out by saying Judeo-Christian because a lot of them are Old Testament or Torah references and stories and teachings um, from from before Jesus. Um, okay, and the Gitas. No, a little more um, about the Prophet Muhammad. I should be explicit about that particular prophet. Murshid said that um, he felt that the time of the prophets had finished, that he put all of the prophets in a timeline context of saying, not all of them, but um, a lot of them, and specifically in the Abrahamic story, that he described the ways that Moses had a particular purpose as a prophet of giving the law, and that that was useful and adequate in its time and its context, and continued to be useful and necessary, but that Jesus then came to refine and to remind people that it isn't just about the law, it is also about the relationship with God and with spirit, and how we what's the word for it? Conduct our human affairs in relationship with each other. That Jesus was refining and clarifying the message from Moses. And then that the Prophet Muhammad came in his time to complete that work of the prophets. And that when we say that, when we, it is common to hear that the Prophet Muhammad was the seal of the prophets, that he was the last of the prophets. And Murshid agreed with that because he felt that there was a necessary refinement and clarification that the Prophet Muhammad brought, and that after that, humanity has been given everything that they need in that form, in the form of the great prophets who bring this big form of a message, the Rasul, and that from that point forward, humanity has moved into a mode now of not needing prophets, but needing teachers. That is moving out of the realm of a big booming voice and more about the personal relationship instruction of guide to murid, of teacher and student, guru and chela. That what we need is more personal instruction and more direct assignment and work. So um, that was really the form that Murshid was offering in his teaching. Okay, then I was going to go to something else before we put a pause on it again. Gitas. So I think most of you know, maybe all of you know, that on Thursday evenings I hold a Sufi class, and we we started with the gathas, which is the it's it's usually described as the first set of teachings that Murshid gave. In Murshid's lifetime, in his teaching career, he gave a lot of instruction with a lot of very specific um, curriculum about what should be taught and when people should learn things and what practices and prayers students, murids, should be given. And so, really, the first things are before someone is initiated, he gave a set of papers that is called the Gothikas, or the Gothikas for candidates, or the social Gothikas, that are all the same thing. But the Gothikas are kind of introductory papers. It's about 70 pages of an overview introduction about what the Sufi message is about and what our values are and what we teach and why does it matter and what are we supposed to do with that, and so a lot of introductory explanations. So those are the Gothikas that were supposed to be given to people before they decide to choose to be initiated on the Sufi path. And then, after someone is initiated as a murid is an initiated student in the Sufi context. Um, After someone is initiated, the first set of teachings of curriculum is a set of papers called the Gathas. And the Gathas are supposed to be taught over a 3-year period. That's 3 years of instruction and study. And the Gathas cover an unbelievable array of teachings, of subject matter that is from everyday life and symbolism and culture and religions and um, some things about practices and uh, intuition and like all kinds of things. It's kind of wild. Okay, so after 3 years of studying the Gathas, then the next set of instructions are the Gitas, and you can find these words, gathas and gitas, in different religious contexts as well. That in Zoroastrianism, the gathas are the core teachings, and you've heard the word Gita, like the Bhagavad Gita in Hinduism, and it's the same word. The H is in there for pronunciation, but um, that it means the song. It's like the verse. It's which is a way of teaching, a way of conveying the wisdom from a tradition. All right, so after the Gathas is the Gitas, and there's 3 years of study with the Gitas. And so our Thursday evening classes right now are focused on those. And those tend to be more advanced practices and teachings about the practices. It's not a workbook. It's not like sit and do this assignment, but it is a lot of explanations about the purpose and the function and how the spiritual life unfolds in relation with everyday life, and how the realms of consciousness and the human capacities are developed and cultivated on the spiritual path. Okay. After that, just a complete little explanation of the curriculum. So it goes the Gathakas introductory, Gathas are first, Gitas are second, then Sangatas are the third set of formal practice. Those are for the super advanced murids that most people don't even know that they exist, but they do. And then the Sangitas are only for teachers. That is for the most advanced. And that's all. Well, that's all that he gave us, like established curriculum for Marines. Okay, pausing the recording again. All right, so the next theme for us today is about communication, conversation, the art of personality, and how Sufism helps us become good conversationalists as humans. I hope that I encapsulated the inquiry adequately with those notes. So, Murshid said so many times in so many ways that Sufism is the art of personality, that which is so completely different from what we generally think of. We're like, Sufism is mysticism. That means it's all about experiencing and relating to God. Well, yes. And one of the directions that we do that is through everyday life and through the expression and shaping of our own personalities. Now, the way that Murshid describes, like, who are we? And so many of us come into life, and especially this is like as teenagers, it's kind of like angsty teenager mentality is like, I am who I am, and you can take it or leave it and love it or hate it, but I'm not changing, and I am who I am. That's the personality expression. But Murshid would say all of those things about personality are actually shapeable. And he would describe layers of who we are. So, at the essence, at the core, at the center, the essential being of every single one of us is the soul consciousness. That is the divine consciousness. That is the perfection of being. That is the absolute God reality that is who we are. That is, if you just strip down and clear out everything else, absolute divine perfection. On top of that, there are layers of, in Sufi terms, I could say, the nafs. The nafs are layers of ego, of personality, of conditioning, of culture, of character, of all kinds of things that we develop, that we accumulate through our human form, through our families, through our experience, through the world, as part of the process of coming into this human incarnate existence, which starts from unified God reality through the angelic realms where we pick up some angelic traits, through the jinn realms where we pick up some jinn traits, into the human realm where we have all of our human traits. The human traits include all of the base animal instincts and the divine perfection, both. Now, if you look at the perfection of the soul as the core of our beings, on top of that layer is what Murshid would describe as the character. And the character is the set of values, of the highest ideals of the individual person that are like the call, the purpose, the life work, and the things that you really just recognize as the essence of who you are, not just what you are as a soul, but who you are as a person. And those things do not change or change very little over the course of a lifetime. On top of that, the next layer out is the personality. And the personality is everything that is expressed, that is active, that is observable, that is felt by other people. And those things include the ways that we present ourselves, our interests, our activities, our hobbies, our tendencies of behavior, our ways of speaking, our ways of expressing, our ways of connecting with and bumping into and integrating with and harmonizing, collaborating, grappling with other human beings and other beings. So the personality is the outermost layer of our expression, our individuated expression, and it is the layer that is 100% shapeable, 100% malleable. That doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that it's instantaneous, but everything about our personality can be shaped according to intention, according to our intention, according to our will, according to our capacity, according to our desires, our values. And so those are things like when you walk into a room and people see you and they hear you and they go, is that person loud, quiet, friendly, aloof, bossy, authoritative, wilting, shy, I lost the word for it. Docile. I love the word docile. Like what are the expressions that other people are immediately aware of? Those things we get to shape. And in the Sufi path, we have to. It's not just that we can, it's that we have to, because the purpose of being in this human form is to experience life fully, to be of benefit, to fulfill our sense of purpose that is God's intention for putting us into these forms, into this world. And that all of those things can be woven into really glorious expressions of the phrases akhlaq Allah, that is embodying and expressing God in the world. That is, how do we understand and relate to the qualities, the attributes, the beautiful names of God? And how do we integrate those and strengthen and harmonize and heal and balance those within ourselves so that our presence in the world is God presence? That's the art of personality. We do that by a lot of diligent discernment and a lot of dedicated effort. And in the Sufi path, there are a few different aspects of that that are kind of themes of practice that are muhasiba, mushahida, muraqaba, mujahida. Those are not on a sequence, but they're all qualities of how do we observe ourselves, witness, understand ourselves as fully and purely as possible so that we can shape things with as much conscientiousness as possible. A lot of the things about our own personalities we are we are so comfortable with and we depend on so greatly for the sense of security and comfort of our own egos that we don't want to even acknowledge that we can change them, and we certainly don't want to actually change them. Which is why it is really essential on the Sufi path to have teachers that we have trust in, that we have great respect for, and that are able to shine a light for us into the areas of our own beings that can be polished, that can be improved, beautified. Um, and we also get great benefit for those of us who are willing to participate in life in the path with friends. And for some of us, that means with fellow murids, with other people who are doing the same kind of work in the same kind of way. And for others, it means our families, our relationships, our friendships, people that we work with, but really taking those relationships as instructive, as opportunity to understand ourselves better and to, as Murshid would say, to remove the thorns in our own personalities. Okay, that was all the time we have for today. Thank you for your very beautiful attention. Thank you for your excellent questions and inquiries and explorations and the things that we didn't get to in our conversation today. I do have some notes that we can come back to next time we have one of these conversations. And I don't think that there's anything else happening this evening that I'm aware of. Is that true? Um, Tomorrow evening, we're doing a universal worship service for the Divine Mother using the prayers for the Temple of the Divine Feminine. That will be tomorrow evening in my home and on this same Zoom link. And I look forward to seeing some of you then. Okay. Lots of love and big blessings. And I will send the 10 Sufi thoughts to those of you whose names I have on here. Thanks, friends. Bye.